Hi, my name's Pat Boldt, and I represent the Western Riverside County Ag Coalition. Most of you in the room probably know me over the years. I've been involved in the TMDL process since the very beginning. 2000 actually was when I started working in the San Jacinto watershed, actually through the Watershed Council as the watershed coordinator. And in 2004, a very smart, small group of dairy operators, Bruce Scott, Sid Brandy, a few others, all came and said, how are we going to comply with this new thing called a TMDL? So we started down the process of becoming fully engaged in the TMDL process and have been since the very beginning. Unlike other entities, the ag community is more difficult to try to get your arms around. The ag operators, as you might suspect, are individual businessmen who you have a large entity of ag operations in the watershed, and they have different BMPs, they have different issues. So to try to approach the whole TMDL concept, we started the coalition and became a voice for the TMDL task force and started addressing projects on a pretty individualized basis where we thought there would be significant impact for the whole, but with this unique group of stakeholders. On the dairy side, obviously we knew because of the CAFO permit where all of those operators were, and we were able to start that process very easily. In the initial TMDL, and I'm going to, by the way, I'm going to use the Agrarian, which is our annual publication and just was printed last week. They're back on the back table. I'm going to kind of use this as a summary of where we're at right now and kind of where we've been. So when the TMDL was initially adopted, we looked at the load allocations and what ag was responsible for, and we said this just doesn't look right. And so the first step that we did, and we've continued throughout the number of years, is we did aerial information system, very detailed mapping of the watershed for all of agriculture. So we've done it in 2005, 2007, 2010, 2014. There was a watershed-wide collaboration through the Watershed Council, and with the help, actually, Jason and I worked pretty closely on that to get everyone involved on it. So there was aerial mapping for the ag community, and as recently as 2016. In the Agrarian, what you'll find that's very interesting is that there's a 45% reduction from when in land acreage for agriculture from when we started in the adoption of the TMDL and currently with the 2016 data. The other thing that is interesting is that as part of the TMDL process for agriculture, we look at greater than 20-acre parcels. And Hope and Cindy Lee were instrumental in that process development. And the really important thing to understand on the TMDL with agricultural operators is that they did all of this on a voluntary basis because there was no permit in place. So because of some really good environmental stewards in the dairy and agricultural community, they started down this path of compliance on the TMDL back in 2004 and have been actively engaged ever since. And that was even in spite of a permit not being in place. So over the number of years, we've done over $6.5–7 million worth of projects. A lot of you in the room know that I was a pretty active grant writer and pretty successful at writing grants, which allowed us through the ag community to get a lot of work done. We did a lot of work on the Mystic Lake issue. We did some Salt Creek studying. And so the reduction in land use, I'm going to kind of go back and just say that it's significant because obviously urban continues to increase and agriculture continues to decrease. I also want to point out in the agrarian, there is one kind of major mistake that you need to just pencil in. Under Tim's article, he's shaking his head back there, where the pollutant load date is 2020, not 2019. Key studies that were done by agriculture, like the Mystic Lake and impact of Mystic Lake and how it affects the watershed, were all really done and started by RACAC. So there are a lot of the reasons that we're actually doing the revisions of the TMDL because of a lot of the work that RACAC had initially started. The dairy folks meet compliance on the TMDL on an annual basis. The ag operators do it on a cycle. I will tell you that Hope was involved in the first cycles that we did, 205, 6, and 7, and we actually set up the process, RACAC and the regional board, on how we actually achieved all of that. The newer things that have been done are the quad program, which is the permit for conditional waiver for agricultural discharges, which had been worked on for years and years and years. We have a grant that I'm going to also talk about that actually has been delayed on and off because we didn't know what the outcome of the quad would be. But the conditional waiver for agricultural discharges is a permit for ag operators. The dairy folks have, as was mentioned earlier, a confined animal feeding operations permit, and that's been in place for many, many years. So there are now 2 permits in place. The work that's been done throughout the past 14, 15 years continues to, I would say, be state-of-the-art for agriculture. RACAC is not the discharger coalition group on the Quad. Eastern Municipal Water District has taken on that responsibility. But RACAC has and will continue to address the TMDL issues, surface water issues, for all the stakeholders in the watershed and continue down the path that we've been on for the past 14 years. On the CIG grant, which is a Conservation Innovation Grant, we are now in our 3.5 years of that particular grant. It started out as a water quality trading type of a grant to address pollutant trading, and a means to do it from non-point source to non-point source, actually. And there have been many revisions to this particular grant out of necessity because the quad was not in place. What we have ended up with is a water quality index tool, which is going to be pretty significant for quad compliance and measuring quad compliance in the future, and it will help to move everyone along down that particular path. So that's just kind of a general overview of agriculture and what we've done. Again, they've been involved for 14 years and very aggressively and intimately involved with the task force and everything that goes on with it. So they've been very active players and will continue to do that. Thank you.